In terms of security, we are not more likely to see a security breach from our home workers than we are any other employee. Everything that they do is very trackable. They have a remote access key fob, and as soon as they've logged in, every single stroke is leaving their digital footprint all over each of the programs that they've accessed. And we also have escalation support on site. So if they do have a difficult inquiry that they're not sure about how to deal with, if we've got somebody in vehicle repair who just wants a second opinion on having a look at an image of damage, they can actually share that with our escalation team, and they can get that support. So it just gives you the kind of hello manager, I need some help, kind of instant support, so that they're not feeling that they can't just get that second opinion from somebody more experienced. So some of the things that we do to engage our employees, and it's really important to remember that not all of our home workers will want us to engage with them. For some of them, there would be nothing worse than us constantly trying to involve them in things, because they've chosen to work at home. And some people do choose to work at home for a reason. And we need to really be respectful of that. So sometimes I have to ask some overly enthusiastic team managers to actually think about what they're doing. So don't think that your team is disengaged just because only half of them have turned up for the Christmas meal that you've organised at near Clapham Junction Station because it was most central. That doesn't mean that they don't like you, it just means that they don't feel the need to engage. So we have to really be mindful of the fact that some will choose to engage, some won't. So recognition, it is absolutely essential that we recognise all of the achievements of our home workers in terms of perhaps their performance, perhaps in their reliability. So we ensure that every single team manager has a formal one-to-one meeting for an hour every single month. We do like to think that there will be a lot more touch points than that, but there is that defined hour where they will actually engage. And as part of our performance development meeting, we actually have it written into the form that they complete for their home workers. We do get them to ask just a few questions around welfare. Just making sure that they're okay, because if you have employees who come into the office, you can pick up the telltale signs if they don't look okay. You can see if they're having an off day, and you can just ask them if everything okay. So we just want to give our home workers the opportunity to engage if they choose to do so. We have social committees. We have in the office, we have a Women in Leadership Committee. We have a male building on skills and strengths group. We have a diversity committee, a charity committee, and we want to offer all of those opportunities to our home workers as well. We view our committees as an opportunity for our employees to actually develop new skills that they can potentially take with them into leadership roles. And as our home working evolves, we have more leadership roles that are actually based at home. We've actually had our first 4 promotions recently to management level of employees who've actually started with us in entry-level home worker positions. So we now have a team manager managing a team remotely who is employed within the last couple of years as an entry-level contact centre agent. As I mentioned, one of my trainers works at home, and she was actually employed into an entry-level contact centre position. So in terms of the sorts of committees that we have, we just do as much as we can to ensure that we have representatives wired up, if you like, so speakerphones on, conference lines open, so that there are people who can take minutes when we have some of the meetings that are in the office. We will repeat any sessions that we do in the office, so we do lots of skills-based workshops, and we will offer those as kind of lunch and learn types of sessions, and we just make sure that there is a webcam and that we are actually broadcasting out to home workers should they choose to join in. We have newsletters. Newsletters can be quite business focused to start with, but towards the end we will see that home workers are sharing recipes and tips for days out and things like that. What was really interesting in terms of Mental Health Awareness Day, which was a couple of months ago, we did quite a lot around that in the office, and we were talking quite a lot about our employee assistance program and help that could be provided to employees who are suffering from stress or returning to work after mental health illnesses, or perhaps supporting friends or family who are suffering from stress or mental health difficulties. And a chat actually started up. We have the business-related chat, and then we have the chat that is there for people to just chat to each other during their breaks. And there was quite a discussion started going around stress, and that there were actually home workers talking to each other about experiences where times that they'd been through where they'd found it quite difficult. And that was really nice to see, because if you are, whether it's a physical ailment or whether it's mental health, usually you would talk to your colleagues, and you would just have that support. And now we've potentially got some link-ups, people who can empathise with each other in difficult situations that they might be going through, but we'll at least remember to maybe send an email or a message and just ask how the other person is. Jumping around here, sorry. Okay, so in terms of business impact, I've mentioned a few of these already. We've seen improved retention, improved performance. We're also seeing more employee referrals, which saves us a lot of money when it comes to attracting the best talent. So we're saving on agency fees, and we're saving on advertising. We offer each employee who refers somebody to the company, after 90 days of successful employment, we offer £500. If it's a role that we're looking to increase headcount quite quickly, sometimes that will be more, but we are seeing lots of employee referrals. We're seeing people being quite creative and posting home worker opportunities on their Facebook pages and tweeting about them, and that's because we don't have those geographical restrictions. That's quite a good source for our recruiters. We've got promotions, so we weren't actually thinking long term, we were thinking more short term about filling entry-level positions, but we are actually seeing progression through the ranks, if you like, and that's great in terms of attracting the best people, because they're not seeing home working as being dead end, they're actually seeing it as a viable career proposition. In terms of our employee opinion survey, we facilitated that, the most recent one in July, and our scores were higher than they've ever been. In terms of home workers, the scores we were probably looking at in the completely satisfied bracket, we were looking at scores almost 7% higher. So some of the other ways that we engage with our home workers is alternative work arrangements. So they can actually commit to a working pattern, but if for a short-term reason they need to actually amend that, then we can actually offer that as well. So we have the flexibility to amend their working pattern every 90 days. In terms of phase back, if home workers will go on maternity leave, they will take sick leave just like any other employee, and we offer them the opportunity to gradually step back up to increase their hours, because we will have some that are working 16 hours a week, we will have some that are working 40 hours a week, and if you're in a full-time job, sometimes it doesn't matter whether you're based at home or not. Sometimes there is the need to phase back in. Reasonable adjustments, just in the same way that we would offer them in the office. Kit is something that's fairly new. Keep in touch days for employees who are on maternity leave. We will actually pay them for a full day, and we will offer 5 kit days during a period of 12 months of maternity leave, so that they can join in with team meetings and just gradually engage and not feel like they've been kind of out of the loop for too long. And this is something that we're doing in the office and also with our home workers. And as I said before, in terms of our opening hours, there is that extended flexibility. For some of the roles, we have some billing roles in our business management team, where we don't actually care if they do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter. The contact centre, speaking to customers, that needs to be done, obviously, when people are calling. But in terms of our billers' productivity, if they're actually productive enough, that doesn't matter. They can split their working day out as really as they see fit. So in terms of adopting a home working strategy, it's really stepping back and looking at what departments you have, what functions you have. Doesn't even need to be departments, what different roles within smaller organisations, and do they need to be based in the office? Do they need to be traditionally sort of 9 to 5? As I said, with our billing team, doesn't matter when that's done, as long as it gets done. Work together, so collaborate with other managers, also with other colleagues, and really get to know your employees and actually know who this might be a good fit for. If you understand the circumstances, if you understand what their driving factors are and what motivates them, then that's really going to help you to understand, is this a viable option in terms of your employees? Because there would be certain departments that we know for a fact that they would hate to work at home. There are certain employees who need to come in, they need to stand by the water cooler and talk about what they did last night. And if you were to force it upon them, then that could be detrimental. And then plan. Really look at all the options, explore the technology, look at the different platforms that are available, and just be as creative as you possibly can. And don't restrict yourself in terms of thinking, right, I can only do this within a radius. We could have been a lot more successful more quickly than we were. I think we were a little bit too cautious to start with, but we've learnt from that, and we've moved on. And then look at the transition. Is everybody going home? Are some people going home? How is it actually going to be rolled out, and who are you actually going to select? We are now, in terms of our contact centre, I've mentioned the contact centre quite a lot, but it is now the team that is 100% home-based. In various other departments, it's about 50-50, but that was a gradual process. So we had to think carefully about how are we going to achieve this, because we did start off with 100% of the employees based in the office, and it had to happen over time. When we started with the pilot, when we first dipped our toes in this, we employed 10 brand new people to be employed at home. But then we had to actually decide, we couldn't send everybody home who just wanted to go home. We had to decide on some criteria. And for us, we chose performance, we chose attendance, reliability, things like that. So they're all really important considerations. Ooh, I'm having problems with this clicker. It's bouncing all over the place. Thank you. Did anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much. So informative. So how, you mentioned in terms of flexibility and work, et cetera, so, I mean, how do you rotor it? I mean, if you've got these people, some doing 7 till 9 in the morning, some doing evenings, et cetera, how do you work it?
Absolutely. So we have a resource planner, and the resource planner will forecast in terms of work volumes. So for somewhere like the damage recovery unit, we need more people working in the winter. As soon as the snow starts falling, it's all hands on the deck. In terms of a team that deals with insurance claims, because Enterprise provides lots of courtesy cars, and in hire a car there are all sorts of different needs. So business volumes will be forecast based on historical data and also on advertising campaigns and things like that. So we will predict as accurately as possible where we're actually going to need to resource, and then we will roster accordingly. Our employees tend to give us what we call a rule and a preference. So your rule could be, I never want to work on a Saturday. My preference would be that I'm always finished by 6 o'clock in the evening. You're not guaranteed. That the preference, we will give as much as possible, and we will give as much notice as possible if we need them to work outside that. The rule, that would always apply, because obviously we can't ask for 100% flexibility. You will be available all the time when we call you. If we forecast incorrectly, if something happens that we weren't expecting, that's when we can send the text out to all of the home workers and see what response we get. Okay.
And apologies, you talked about bring your own computer and whatever else. I can see that working. Are they answering calls, or is it live chat? So they do that through their computers, do they? Or
for any of our teams that take calls, they will log on through the remote server, so Citrix they use now, and we use Avaya 1X. So all of our agents in the office, or all of our system is connected up to our Avaya system. So for our home workers, they log in using a little box on their screen, and then they would put in their home telephone number. That makes their phone ring. They simply pick it up, put it back down again. We've basically taken over their phone line, but they've got no cost associated because it's going through our Avaya system. So anyone who's dialing into that line would get an engaged tone, but if you were out at work anyway, people wouldn't be able to call you, so it doesn't tend to be a problem. So anyone dialing in gets engaged, but if they call out, then they're not going to be charged. And then they do have a phone connected up to their PC or laptop, and it basically just rings through a headset. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Janice. We've got a short break now before our last speaker of the day, who is Daniel Priestley, who's just waving at the back there. He's going to be talking about how you can become a global